Hello, my name is Michelle Lowe. I'm a New York-based gallerist. I'm also hosting virtual artist talk with 11 artists from the Golden Door exhibition weekly. Golden Door exhibition is currently on view until January, and it is located at the Silvermine Arts Center in New Canaan, Connecticut. The exhibition tells the story of becoming American and being American by 11 artists, originally from different parts of the world. So today I'm speaking with Suzanne Clinard, and she is speaking with us from New Haven, Connecticut, right? Welcome, yes. Suzanne.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
And Suzanne has experience and trained as a sculptor and also got education in cultural anthropology. And she spent quite a bit of time in Chicago at the time teaching at the Art Institute of Chicago and other institutions before moved to New Haven. And Suzanne, you have about more than 30 years experience in sculpture and has had many awards, including the nation's top carving award. So for the Golden Mine exhibition, we're very delighted to include some major piece of her work that signifies her practice. Suzanne, first tell us what are we seeing behind you?
Well, thank you, Michelle, for the introduction. I'm in my studio right now, which is a residency through the Eli Whitney Museum. I've been here for about 8 years. And behind me is a glimpse of some larger pieces that is entitled The Waiting Room. And they are figures that try to speak to our connectedness and that we are, the metaphors that we are all waiting for the same thing in essence. But you see grandmothers with found objects, couples loving, basically each figure is asking something different of the viewer. And I've done, and I apologize, the image is probably not very powerful here, but I've done probably 4 different variations of this piece that continue to ask us to find our shared humanity and someone who seems quite different from us, but in actuality probably is not.
That's a really great introduction for us to see your work. So I would like to share my screen, just show the works included in the exhibition. So now this is the installation photo. As you can see, this is a photo before they finish the complete installation. So we have cardboard on the floor. But these are really life-size sculpture, right? The scale of it.
Yes.
And tell us more about the series and the work.
Well, the piece is entitled History Repeats Itself. And in the queue of people, the first figure is actually not where I think to begin. It's actually the second figure. And I will refer back to the first figure in a moment. The second figure reflects a Syrian woman with her baby on her back, which talks basically about our current travel ban in the US, not allowing people from certain nations to come in from war-torn countries, which in my humble opinion, there's a lot of fear-mongering with this. And so, but I started to begin to think about how throughout our American history, we've banned certain groups of people based on, a lot of times, not on any kind of distinctive facts. It was just to keep homogeneity and certain ideas about our American values intact. But so I decided to make this piece, and they're all built in a very different way, but they are life-size, which I find powerful because the scale, when you walk up to these figures, it's a 1-to-1 scale. So the viewer can't help but have an impact of relationship of themselves in viewing these. So the third figure is a Japanese American woman, and this refers to the Japanese internment camps during World War II, where we basically forced Japanese Americans to stay in these encampments. And it was another way that the government felt that we needed to separate people that aren't Americans, and actually they were American citizens but of Japanese descent. The fourth figure is it's a European Jew circa 1939 through 45, where the American we would not allow Jews into the country. We actually turned an enormous boat around called the St. Louis, which had over 1,000 Jews fleeing the war. And unfortunately, tragically, not unfortunately, we turned the boat around, and more than 500 of those same individuals were later killed in the Holocaust. And then lastly, the figure at the end represents so many different African nations that we've banned entry. Currently Somalia, Sudan, but also in the 1980s during the Helms Agreement, which we were fearful of AIDS and different disease, but also it was phrased that we wanted to maintain this homogeneity. And I just find it very ironic that, we are a country our wealth is basically built on the back of slaves that we forced to bring here. And then later we turn and won't allow African descendants to arrive.
Just a quick question, Susan. When you said the last figure, is it the little girl or the both?
Right, it's a father and daughter. So It's a little girl. And I always try to keep young people, elderly people represented in my work, because I feel so often when we talk about humanity in our work, we often leave out the variation of ages. And I think the impact on immigration control and the way we've alienated a lot of people has affected children equally as it has adults.
So I just want also our viewer to see it clearly that this is a one piece of sculpture, but with a children and a father and with the heads here, right?
Right. So I all of these pieces are mixed media, where the faces and hands are sculpted in clay, and they're later fired and adhered and painted. The bodies are either found wood objects that I've assembled together, or they are more like the first two figures, which are these found structural columns from an old factory here in New Haven, which I find striking in just their character, those negative pockets of space in there taken away, which I find again metaphorical to things you've had to leave behind when you come here. Parts of you feeling missing and disconnected to this new place. And the first figure is basically whatever the next group is. So it's this open question. It's asking us to, think about next time we decide to, alienate or make a distinction of who we will not allow in our country. And so essentially just offering a question to the viewer. Because essentially this queue could have gone on and on and on with other groups that we have not allowed in. but I felt like aesthetically this, I was, happy to kind of keep it at this group here.
So when I see the arm with the hand, this part is painted?
Correct.
Okay, and the hand is made in clay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm curious to learn, when do you, seems like a majority of your work or a commentary on social issues associated with immigration. And why are you so, when does your interest strike and why you focus on this line of work?
Well, I believe, I didn't intentionally know that my work was going to evolve into that I was essentially going to be a social activist in some ways, but I was a former social worker in Chicago. I lived in diverse neighborhoods and had sincere and genuine friendships and beautiful camaraderie with all kinds of human beings. And I feel deeply personally connected to our shared stories and what we can learn from one another and how it makes us more powerful as a country. And I feel deeply saddened by some things that are happening in our country that I feel like I'm not an articulate person, but let me speak through my work, and perhaps that will have a voice that my own speaking voice will resonate with others. I worked for the last 12 years also with a refugee resettlement agency here in New Haven. And again, some of the most profoundly beautiful human beings that I've ever met. And so it's something I care deeply about.
So when you make this work, do you have a specific person you had in mind used as model?
That's a good question. And most of the time, no, because I feel that so many of these figures embody, a general feeling or a general, a group of people, so to speak. Occasionally, a direct relationship with an individual might come to fruition. With, for example, the second figure in the Syrian woman, I did have in mind someone that I have known and worked with, although it's not her face exactly, but the art of making, in my case, happens to be allowing chance, allowing risk, allowing the unknown to enter your process and let it speak. And what that means is oftentimes I'm left almost weeping or laughing out loud in the studio at what just came out of my hands. The intent was there in my heart, but very oftentimes I'm left surprised at what came out.
And I also understand you're currently still teaching, is that right, in New Haven?
So off and on, when I have the ability to squeeze it in my schedule, I do still teach. When I can. I just finished a big project workshop yesterday, actually, but I'm not teaching nearly as much as I used to.
And how do you find the workshop experience of showing others what sculpture or art making can do in a more direct way to responding to the current, the world situation and issue?
Michelle, that's a great question. And what I have found is actually it's profoundly impactful, both for me as the educator and those who I have taught. And I have taught, groups of people from the elderly down to preschool, actually. My preferred group, actually, to teach are young high school students who I feel are a bit more open to experience a little bit of everything. They haven't solidified their ideas about things yet, and the actual tangible experience of pushing clay to the side, of chipping wood away, slowly revealing this feeling or sensation or this idea that they had, and it comes to fruition in this three-dimensional form. I have seen students weep. Just, they are so ecstatic and happy. So to be a part of that awareness is a really beautiful thing.
Well, you said beautifully about your experience as an artist, as a mentor, and a social worker. Do you have anything coming up as part of your ongoing art practice? Is there any exhibitions coming up in addition to the Silvermine one?
Well, I had 2 other exhibitions lined up. I shouldn't say I had 3, and 2 had been canceled because of COVID. I have one exhibition in January at the Irish Hunger Museum, where once again the works of speaking of immigration and just the trials and tribulations of what it meant for groups of people to arrive here and settle here and find identity here will be focused upon. And I'm finishing an Arts Council of Greater New Haven grant with some brilliant collaborators and young people, where we're making a videography sculpture performance of reworking one of our nation's monuments that is being taken down right now because of insensitivity to many people. So we're having a discussion while resculpting the very small version of the monument. So it's powerful to hear the young voices have input.
Right. Well, we wish you best luck on those exhibitions. And for our viewers, if you have a chance, please do go to Silvermine to see the exhibition. It will be on until January 16th. And if you're interested in Suzanne's work, she has a website, just SuzanneClinard.com. So thank you very much for joining. And please come back next week, where I will be speaking with different artists in the show. And thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you very much, Michelle.